thanks for tuning in to Ron's Recreations. I wanted to take some time and share with you what I did to install a 1992 Dodge Ram Charger tank using 88 to 1990 Dodge Ram Charger rear frame section, which has the three cross braces, the supports and everything you need to mount a Ram Charger 34-gallon auxiliary fuel tank to your First Gen Cummins pickup. But I wanted to give a shout out to Duddy at Duddy's Adventure, to Tim over at Decent Garage, to Tyler at Evans Garage, to Rob at Cutter Up Rob. You know, the auxiliary tank, like especially if you're camping or traveling, you know, I know Tim and Tyler, you guys do a lot of traveling. You know, this might not be a bad idea. The stock tank, 30-gallon tank, I think my truck, when I used it as a tow vehicle, got anywhere from 17 and a half to 19, but I always call it about 17 and a half miles a gallon, which isn't bad for a diesel truck. And on a 30-gallon tank, that was 515, 520, something like that. Fuel range, it was pretty good fuel range. But the 34-gallon Ram Charger tank is nice because it gives you 64 gallons of fuel in a factory type application. Even though the tanks are hard to find and the sending units are hard to find, at least it's something that you can get parts for. You got to hunt for them, but it's a stock. It looks stock. It doesn't look, it's very, you know, it's pretty decent made, and I think it fits in here nicely. I could be wrong, you know. Put down in the comments if you think I made any mistakes, or if you think I'm going to blow myself up, but if it was safe in the Ram Charger, it's safe in this. It's got the same rear bumper to protect it. It's actually a little further up in the frame, so it's a little more protected. But I'm going to show you what I think was a good install. I think if you're going to do this, you're going to need to pull the bed off, because you are going to have to drill at least 10 holes from the top, ½ inch. And that's a bear doing it on your back upside down, trying to squeeze it through on the inside of the frame rail. It's bad enough drilling on the ground, drilling those holes. But if you really want a nice, I think this is a pretty good install. I could be wrong. Don't get me right. You know, don't get me wrong. I could be totally wrong. I could be wrong. Or I could be right. Hey, I might be right. Who knows? Let me know what you think of this install. But I think if you're going to do this install, really, you need to pull the bed off. It's not that hard. It's 8 bolts. It comes right off. You can get a buddy, disconnect the lever, the tail lights, pull the bed. It'll make life a whole lot easier. And then it's easier to clamp. It's easier to see. It's easier to get a real good feel of what you're doing, so you don't have to drill extra holes. But if you want to drill extra holes, I won't object. It gives you more welding experience. And who doesn't need more welding experience? But anyways, I'm going to show you the Ram Charger frame, the pieces I took from it. I also took the shock cross member, which is identical from that 88 Ram Charger, because I had to cut the diesel cross member out.
I still got to cut this 5th wheel bracket out,
because they welded the plate to the frame and to the shock cross mount. So then I'm going to show you rear cross member. There's 3 rivets, 2 on top, 1 on the bottom on each side. Right here, I got to drill out there, at the bottom, and at the bottom here.
and then we can start putting those brackets in. Before you put your Ram Charger tank in, that's what you're going to start with on your W250 or W350 or D250 or your D350 if you're going to add the auxiliary tank. 2 bare frame rails. The 3 gas tank supports, and then I had to cut out the shock mount when I took that 5th wheel plate out. And then these are kind of a bonus. These, I guess, are shipping tie downs that were left on this Ram Charger. Maybe all the Ram Chargers have them, but neither one of the D350 or the W250 of mine had them, so I'm gonna add them. Thought that was kind of cool.
Next, I'm gonna show you how to mount those real cool tie downs. Even though we don't have time and nobody really cares because they came to watch a fuel tank video, I'm going to show you those really cool tie downs. Next, I'm going to show you how the tank should not be installed. And when you see it, really look close, because you can see why not to install it all the way at the very back. I already found out you're not supposed to mount it there, so I saved you some trouble. But if you want to drill the extra holes, I don't mind. I really don't. Like I said, nobody can argue with more welding practice. It's always good to get more practice.
I guess somebody's racing their bike. Sorry about the lighting. The tank is in. I got to find the hardware for the pan so I can bolt it in the back here and then line up the sides, drill the holes for it, and put the straps in. The tank's in, everything fits. Here's a mod I did. I moved this bolt over one bolt hole because it had as an access hole for the bed bolt. I don't know if you can see the mark on the plate, but we're going to trim that plate a little bit. And then we're going to trim that side of the plate as well. And I moved that bolt over to one bolt hole, maybe a bolt hole and a half. That's basically in. Cummins has a spare tank, auxiliary secondary tank. All right. There she is, guys. Progress.
Next, notice when I film, I talk with my hands. Do any of you talk with your hands? It really bugs my wife when I talk with my hands. So I make a point of not talking with my hands, but as you all know, it's hard not to talk with your hands. So, next, I'm going to show you with some real good music. Comment, bleep, bloop down below if you like the music. I know, I like the music. Of course, I'm older. You know, everybody has different tastes. But I'm going to show you how the tank turned out, installed, dramatically. I'm going to walk around and show you, and you can see the gaps, you can see the shield fits nicely, you can see the brackets sit nicely in the frame. There's nice even spacing. There's multiple options of drill holes. But the most important thing to remember when installing this, please wait on your cold snacks. That's very important. You can have them. I'm not saying that you can't have cold snacks. You can have cold snacks. What I'm saying is, cold snacks are not your friend when you're measuring. Don't forget to take notes. I took lots of notes. Don't forget to take pictures, video, how it's on the Ram charger frame. When you go to install this, make sure you don't refer to any of that, because it'll confuse you. Just remember 2 bolt holes, the rear and the second. Everything else will fall into place, and it's got to be on the hump. first bottom hole. Well, what do you think? I'm going to show you the ram charger tank with some good music to let you see how the final install turned out. What I think is a real nice, good, will work, safe install of the ram charger tank. This is how I did it. Then I'm going to go through and kind of walk you through step by step what I did, how I measured, what not to do, spacers and stuff, if you're really interested. If I left anything out, let me know. I tried to cover everything. I think one thing I didn't do was when I put some 2x4s on the sides of the splash shield and bent that lip in a little bit to get the lip to move inside to the inside edge of the frame rail a little bit on both sides. And I lost that video, and the very end of this video I lost. You'll notice I'm wearing the same shirt, sitting on a little chair, and I show you the frame rail. I lost that part of the video, and I showed you the inside briefly where you have to clearance the frame right about where the spare tire at the rear of the frame enters the frame, and where the spare tire radius at the front of the frame. On all four corners of that radius need to be thinned up a little bit or clearanced to allow for the tank, because they're really close. The driver's side touches the tank, and you definitely don't want that. So it is a real tight clearance there. But if, like I said, if I left anything out, drop me a comment down below. Leave me a comment. Help my channel grow if you like what I'm doing. It's going to get a little more interesting now, now that we're picking up steam. It's just hard. I videotape everything. I work a full-time job Monday through Friday. I come out here in the evenings, like Danny at D&D Speed Shop, work till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. But I don't always video. But if you like what I'm doing, leave me a comment. I'll try to answer any questions if you have any questions, to the best of my ability. And then, without further ado, here's to you. Let's pop a top. Enjoy the video. Thanks for tuning in. So, to those guys that would like to add a Ram Charger factory Dodge fuel tank, 34-gallon fuel tank, to your Dodge Cummins turbo diesel, this is what I found worked for me to make a really nice install. I misdrilled some holes, and what I learned was if you want to install this Ram Charger fuel tank setup in your W250, W350, I guess it would also apply to your D250 and D350 series also. First, this bracket does not mount all the way at the end. Take this bracket and use those 4-inch pinch clamps from that Harbor store. And down here at the corner, clamp it down. See that hole? That's your hole for your bed bolt. I line this bracket up to the edge of that hole, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. Then take this bracket
and clamp it right here with those little pinch clamps on either side. And then don't clamp it, you can't clamp it right here, and you don't clamp it down here yet. Then take your shield, bolt it up here, bolt this lip on to your shield. This is important. If you want it to line up under here on your frame rail, attach this shield to this rail that you just clamped right now, all four corners on this one. And you can see over there, right to the edge of that hole, that's your rear bed mount hole. Then take your shield and attach it to your brace or your bracket, and attach it to your upper frame cross member here. What this allows you to do now is this bracket up here has to pivot this way to get this shield to sit flush up here, and you have to clearance this hole on the shield for both sides. That's your second bolt hole. Then what you got to do is you put two 1/2-inch grade 8 steel washers between this bolt, between this bracket and the frame. Put the nut on and just loosely to where it touches this bracket and brings it just loose. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. Then put this bolt in. That's once you figured out all your measurements, what you're doing. Then, leaving this bolt just snug with two washers here, no washers here, you can tighten this bolt. And as you tighten this second bolt, this bracket will pivot like this. And as it's pivoting to the proper point on this curve of this part of the frame on the diesel, it will make that bracket start pulling up, and it will start taking up your gap here as that pivots up. Am I doing that right? As that pivots up, this will come up, and as soon as it touches, stop. Then tighten this bolt down as tight as you can get it, and recheck your gap here. If your gap opened up just a little bit, then start snugging this one down. Once that one is snug, sorry about that, then you know exactly where to drill this hole. And I took two sections of the frame from my cutout up there. When I did the frame sectioning, there were two sections from the 84 thicker frame, and I had two sections of the 92 that was a little bit thinner. And I cut two sections of the diesel frame as 1 inch by 1 inch with 1/2-inch holes, spacers, that you can see that I put under both sides of the bracket. And that holds this bracket in perfect alignment. And on a side note, you added 2 1/2-inch grade 8 washers. Now you have to put 2 between here and the frame, here in the frame, and 2 under between here and the frame. You can cut square spacers for this out of the frame section also, because the frame lips that already have these holes drilled in them are already 2 washers thick. The exact spacing you need for this. This one, when I put this back in after the frame is all painted, I'm leaving as a round washer, 2 washers, and then I'll put Loctite on both of these bolts. But there will be a gap here. That can't be helped. The frame is shaped differently here on the Dodge diesel frames than it is on the Ram Charger frame. And I've got the Ram Charger frame right there. I'll drag it up and show you. This lower brace where it's bolted to the frame is exactly flush with the frame. I'll probably add a square washer to the top of it to help pinch it. One thing I found when I did this, the way my Reese hitch was attached, they had it through this hole with the big square washer, and the heavy duty carriage bolt bolted up to here, and it cracked my frame here, and it's got a crack starting on this side, and it did it to that side of the frame also. The outside ring didn't crack, but I've got a crack forming on the inside ring, so that needs to be repaired. When you set this up on the Dodge for your spacing, once the front is bolted to the brace and the very front shield is in its proper position, and now that your side pieces are touching the frame rail and the front is touching, you have these little spring clips that snap onto this. I showed them earlier in the video, the hardware. And those snap in here, and this should be about 3/8 roughly on both sides. You notice I re-drilled that hole because I drilled these out too far. 1, 2, mistake 3. The shield has a provision for 4, but if you move this shield over on the passenger side, that bow hole has nothing to go through. So that was a mistake. That was from somebody else. That one's factory. But you can see I drilled a little tiny pilot hole right there. I don't know if it'll focus on that. That is a hole. Yep, there you go. I drilled a pilot hole here because we're going to move that over to hug the frame. We're still going to clearance this right here. Back here, this part of the frame and this part of the frame do not need to be clearanced. This is where you establish roughly about 3/8 the edge of the shield, and the edge of the shield should follow this all the way down. You're going to clearance a little bit here because of that point so it won't hit the tank. You're going to clearance from here all the way to the bend a little bit. For some reason the tank hugs this driver's side a little more. We can probably shift it to get it over more centered. And then this side of the frame, this hole is going to get welded shut. I drilled it too far, and it'll be about 3/8, but we're going to clearance right here in the frame. Not so much up from here to here, but more from here to here, like I said earlier, because the tank goes at an angle right there. And then we're going to clearance this a little bit for that point. We don't want a point hitting your tank. Weld, bring this a little closer, and then this inside edge is where this edge of your splash shield should start on these diesel frames, from what I found out. Right here on the edge for that shield. And then the rest of it you can either adjust in and out. There's plenty of room when you look in there and you start doing it. You'll see you have plenty of room wherever you want to put it. But I did that. And the main reason I made it hug this side was to give me clearance for the Reese hitch, so that the hitch could come off by itself or the shield could come off by itself without hitting the hitch. This is what I chose as the starting point, just to the edge of that circle. Now, if you choose to follow my directions, do so at your own risk. I'm just showing you what I did, and then I use that concrete and metal prep strip clean from Home Depot. I think it's $17.96 a gallon. So then I started spraying it down and soaking it with that, and that really starts biting into the rust. I did that before. Before I did this, I used the concrete and metal prep from Home Depot. And then after that, I let it soak. That softened a lot, ate up a lot. And then I went over it with the wire wheel. You can see I'm getting it all down to bare, getting it nice and cleaned up. And then I've ground off where the gooseneck plate was, cleaned it up. I've still got to do that side. You can see how thick it is over there. But that gives you all that open access to get all that nice and clean, prepped, won't rust. Still got it, that side I've still got to start scrubbing on. I'll start hitting that with the wire wheel next. A few days it ought to be ready for primer. Figured I'd get it ready so that when my buddy Wayne comes over, and once this is welded, it can all come apart and sanded down and prepped for paint. I'm ready to start putting it together. What a great feeling. Anyways, thanks for riding along with my adventure. This is where we're at.